Okay guys, welcome back to episode 7 of our Asteroids game. Today we're going to be working on trying to get our player to die whenever you collide with some of the asteroids, as well as respawning the player into our game after like a little, probably like a 2 or 3 second delay after you've collided with an asteroid. In the previous episode we worked on destroying our asteroids whenever we shoot them with our player, and today we're going to be doing the opposite. We're going to be working on destroying our player when you collide with the asteroids. So this should be a fairly short video. There's not much to do in here other than disable the player and then re-enable it after a few seconds, so it should be about 10-15 minutes max, maybe, depending on how smooth things go. But let's get straight into it and switch screens here so we can see our display, and let's have a look and see what our plan is. So episode 3 is very short. Well, it's not short, but it's very it doesn't take long to do these steps, so it should be perfectly fine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with creating a onCollisionEnter 2D method or function in our player class, and then in there we're going to obviously check what we're getting hit by. So let's go ahead and start doing that first. So let's pull up our player class, and that is already open. So in here we can go ahead and get started straight away by typing in at the very bottom, or you can put this anyway, but for our game let's go ahead and put it at the bottom here. So what do we want to say? We want to bring in our onCollisionEnter 2D, which is right at the bottom, so let's bring that in. And what do we want to do? We want to check if we are colliding with an asteroid. So let's go and say if collision dot dot tag or dot game object dot tag is equal to asteroid, then we can go ahead and destroy our player. So let's first of all, let's see if we actually collide with an asteroid by saying debug.log yes, whatever you want. So this is just going to tell us obviously if we are colliding with an asteroid. So if we collide with something else, nothing is going to get printed into our console over here, but if we do collide with an asteroid, then yes will be printed. So that is what we want. Let's just go ahead and change our layout here so we get our layout that we normally use. Let's go ahead and play the game, and now we can try and collide with the first asteroid that we see without shooting. So let's wait and see. Okay, so we don't get anything, and I think I know that's why that is. So if we go and click on what do we want? We want in our hierarchy, no, on our asteroid prefab, so open that up. Our tag of our asteroid is not set to anything, so we need to go and create a new asteroid tag. So let's add in an asteroid. So we can add that into there and then go back onto our asteroid and add that onto the asteroid game object. So now if we go ahead and play the game now with our tag on the asteroid, we should now get the yes word printed in our console, meaning that we are colliding with an asteroid, which we don't. That is a bit weird. Did I save it? Okay, let's see. Asteroid. Did I spell this the right way? Tag. Get rid of that one. Just pop that in there. And then we will add it back onto there. We'll save that. We can try this again. So this was supposed to be a 10-minute video, but by the looks of it, it's going to be about 20 minutes. So let's see. Do we get a console log? We don't. So what is happening here? So first of all, this is on our player. Okay, so on onCollisionEnter 2D, let's just check something quick. Give me a second here. So I'm going to drag these into here so I can see what we're doing. So let's see. Hang on. So that is right. If collision.gameObject.tag is equal to asteroid, then debug.log, yes, okay. So let's go open up our player and see what's happening here. So player, we'll just add, okay, we'll add a player tag onto our player, not that that will make much of a difference. But, let's see. First let's see if this has actually been called. So we'll copy that and we'll paste that outside of the if statement, just to see if it is actually working properly. That way we can see if our player is colliding with these objects. So let's play the game and then see if this works. So hopefully now we can get something printed out. Okay, so what? Okay, so that is working. It is getting called, so that's fine. Collision.gameObject. Tag is equal to asteroid. I just want to check something. If we play the game and we pause the game when some asteroids have actually spawned into the game, let's go ahead and check and see if our asteroid actually has, or the asteroids in the scene actually have a tag on them. Okay, so they don't have, that's why, so they don't have the tag of asteroid on it, which is weird, because I'm pretty sure we updated that. So, prefab, do that and save that, and we'll open up our spawner here and see what's happening. Asteroid prefab, so we can go back into our scene on our spawner, and here let's go and drag in our asteroid again. Prefab. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's play the game again and see what's happening. So we can spawn some asteroids in again and see. So we'll pause the game there. So they still don't have a tag on them, which is not really making sense. Okay, let's have a look and see. Asteroid. I'm just going to try something here and say this dot game object dot tag is equal to. Can you do that? Can you set a tag? So we'll save that, and hopefully now that will set the tag of each asteroid to actually be an asteroid, because I don't know why that's not working. It should work fine. So if we play the game, hopefully we have luck now. Let's go ahead and see if the spawned asteroids in the scene actually have a tag on them. So let's pause the game as soon as we get some asteroids in. So we'll pause that. Okay, so they all now have the asteroid tag, so let's go and resume the game. Okay, so that's working now. So now you can see we have a yes being printed out, which is good, that's what we want. So let's go ahead and delete that. And let's have a look and see. Let's see what is happening. What's next? So we've done the on collision enter. We've checked if these asteroid. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and stop the movement, but we also need to go and stop the rotation. So to stop the movement, all we have to do is set the velocity to equal to 0, and to stop the rotation, all we need to do is set the angular velocity is equal to 0. So let's go and do that. So to do that, let's jump back into our code here, and in our if statement here, all we need to go and say, we need to get reference to our rigid body, which is here, underscore rigid body. So we'll copy and paste that and put that there, and here we'll say rigid body dot velocity is equal to vector 3 dot 0, and then the same thing for the angular velocity. We'll go and say rigid body dot angular velocity is equal to 0.0 f. So for the angular velocity, you actually have to set it to 0.0 f. You can't just say vector 3.0. That doesn't work. So what's next on this? We've done that, we stopped the rotation. Now we need to disable our player. So to do that, instead of deleting the player out of the scene and just respawning in a later stage, we're just going to disable it, which will save us from reinstantiating it into the scene later. So to do that, all we have to say is this dot game object dot set active, and we'll set that equal to false. So that is going to set our player. It's still going to be in the scene, but it's going to be set to false, so there won't be all the physics and everything on all the components and everything won't actually work. So you'll still see it in the hierarchy of the game, but you will not see it in the actual scene. It will just be grayed out. So let's go ahead and play the game. Let's just zoom out here so we can see the full screen. So let's go and collide with something. Okay, so there we go. So now you can see that we are still in the scene. So if we go and enable that again, you can see there's the player, but because we collide with an asteroid, we've gone ahead and disabled the player and set it to be false. So what's next? Now we need to go and work on actually respawning the player back into the scene. So let's get out of here and go back to our checklist and see what's next. So we'll take those off, turn off the game object. We've done that. So now, like I said, we want to go ahead and respawn the player after a certain time period. That's going to be something very small, maybe 2, maybe 3 seconds, maybe. So to do that, we want to go and create another script, and that is going to be called Game Manager. So this is going to be a script that we keep, where we keep like references to our lives, our score, and all of that. So to start off with, let's go and create a reference to the player, and then we'll also add in our lives reference. So let's go and say, okay, make a public player for now. So public player, just like that. And then what else we want is we want a public, int. I think it's lives, not score. So lives is equal to 3. So we'll set the lives to equal to 3, which means the player in the game has 3 lives. So after they've used their 3 lives, they're gonna game over. That's it. So what else do we need? We also need a reference to our spawn delay. So when a player collides with an asteroid, there is going to be a slight delay between the collision or the disable of the player and then the re-enable the player. So there's going to be that slight, very short delay of probably about 2 or 3 seconds. I think we'll make it about 3 seconds for now and see how it is. That might be a bit too long, but for now let's go and create that reference. So here we want to say public float respawn, or let's just say spawn delay, and we'll set that equal to 3 for now. 3.0f for now. We can always change that. It is public, so we can change that in the inspector as well. All of these are. What did I do? So I'll save that. Jump back into our what is it called? I can't even remember. Our episode plan. So we've created a respawn player after. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Okay, respawn player after delay, which is what we're doing. So under that we've got reference to a player. We've got that in. We've added we haven't done that. We haven't created a player died method. This is all over the place. What was I doing? We've added in the live reference, which was set to 3, but now we need to go and create a die method. So let's go and say I don't know if we're gonna need these, so let's go ahead and get rid of them for now. So let's go in our game manager. Let's go and say public. This is going to need to be public because we have to access this from the player class. So if you make this private, you won't be able to access it. So go ahead and make it public for now. So public void player died. You can name it whatever you want. Let's just go and say player died for now. And in here, we obviously need to reduce the lives by 1, and then we need to respawn the player. So let's go and do that. So let's go and say lives is minus equals 1, which means remove or deduct 1 from the current value of lives. It's the same as saying lives is equal to lives minus 1 or lives minus minus. You can do it different ways. For now, we'll leave it like that. So what's next? Now we need to respawn our player. So, well, technically not really, because our player is still in the scene, but what we can do is we can call a new method that we're going to create, and this is going to be a respawn player. So let's go and create that. Let's go and say I think we can make this private because we're not really going to need to access it from anywhere other than in this class. So we'll say private void. This is simply going to be called respawn. So private void respawn. Oh, wrong brackets. Need some curly brackets. Okay, so in here, all we have to do is undo what we've already done. So that is put the player back into the scene, and how we're going to do that is we're just going to be setting the player back to true. So we can do that by going this dot player dot rigid body. Can we access that on it? Okay, so we might have to go game object. Let's try that again. Dot game object dot set active. There we go. Set active is equal, and then in the brackets we'll say true. So that is going to reset our player, or set it back to being active in the scene. Another thing we need to do is we actually need to reposition our player back into the middle of the scene. So to do that, all we have to do is go and say this dot player dot transform dot position is equal to vector 3.0. so that is going to put the player back into the middle of the scene, obviously because the middle of the scene is, if this loads I can show you, the middle of the scene is at 0, hopefully. So there you go. So position 0, 0, 0. So that is what that vector 3.0 vector 3.0 is going to set that as. It will set the x, y and z back to 0. What's next? Let's have a look and see. So we need to actually call this in our player dies. So in here we want to say respawn. So we'll call our respawn here. So let's go ahead and see if this works. But now that I think of it, it's not going to work because in our on collision enter here we haven't actually called our method. So this is where we need to call game manager method, but we don't have any reference to it or any way of accessing it yet, so we need to do that. So let's go and create a new game object in our hierarchy, create an empty object, and we'll call that game manager, and in here we will add in our game manager script onto that. So now you can see we have reference to our player, and then you can see our lives is equal to 3 and our spawn delay is equal to 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag in our player prefab that's in our scene into our game manager reference here for our player. So that's in there nicely. That should be fine. So now what else we need to do is we need to, on awake, we need to go and set a reference. So there is a different way you could do this. You could just say, what is it? You could, in here, you could say find object of type with game manager, and then after that simply say player died. So that is one way you could do that, but obviously that is not the best way, because find object by type is extremely slow, and not only does all it have to go through every single game object in the scene, it will have to go through every single game object, every component and everything, every single time you collide with something. So that is not what we're going to do. We're going to do this a different way. Although you could, for this game, you could do that, because I mean it's not that slow for this game. But if you're making like a much bigger game and you need like less delays and everything, more like a faster refresh rate or something, you do not want to do that. So for our game, just to make it a bit better, what we're going to do is we're going to say public game object game, I can spell that right, game manager. I think that's fine, and then underneath that we'll say public, or we'll keep this private because we don't really need it in the inspector. So private, and this is going to be a game manager script, like that. And then in our awake method here we'll say game manager script is equal to game manager, I think, game manager dot get component, and then game manager. Oh, why can't they just enter it straight away? Game, because I spelled it wrong. Game manager. So we'll get the script off of that game object like that. Oh, what are you doing? Those brackets need to go in there. Cool. So now we should have access to that script. So now we can simply in here go and say game manager script dot player died. So that should handle that. So we'll save that. We'll jump back into here, and now the only thing we need to do is we need to drag and drop in some references in our inspector. So let's go and click on our player. I think it is player. Okay, so now you can see we have a game manager reference here, so we can go and drag in our game manager object that we just created. So that should be fine. So let's go play the game and see if that works. So let's see. Hopefully that works. I have a feeling that it won't, just because nothing ever works in the first time. So let's see. Let's try and get Asteroid. Okay, so okay, cool. So it is working, but you can see that we don't have that delay. So that is what we want to go and fix. So let's jump back into our game manager here, and to add a delay, instead of just calling our respawn method just like this, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and invoke it. So let's go and say invoke, not repeating because we only want it to be called once. So invoke respawn, so let's do this properly. So name of and then our name, well, what am I doing? Respawn is called respawn. So our method is called respawn, like that, and then obviously we want to add in that delay. So this is where our spawn delay is going to come into play. So we'll add that into there. So that now should act as a 3-second delay from the moment you collide with an asteroid and the moment that the player is actually set back to true. Because obviously if we don't add in that delay, all you're going to see is wherever you are on the screen, all you're going to see is when you collide with an asteroid, your player is just going to straight move to the center of the screen, which is not what we want. We actually want the player to disappear out of the scene for a few seconds. So let's go and see if that works. So I'm just going to stay here and see. Okay, so our player is gone. A few seconds. There it is. So now we can go. Okay, we've gone again. So that is going to be a problem. So what we don't want to happen is we don't want the player to be able to collide with asteroids after they've just respawned, just in case they actually respawn on top of an asteroid. Otherwise your lives count is just going to go down rapidly and you won't be able to play the game properly. So what we can do to fix that is we can actually go and disable like all collisions. for a few seconds, but we're not going to do that in this episode. We'll do that in the next episode. But for now, there is one thing that we have left to do, and that is to simply check whether we have run out of lives or we've still got lives, because obviously if we don't have any lives, we don't really want to respawn the player. So let's go ahead and tick some things off. So we've reset the position to 0, we set the player to active. So now we need to check if the game is over. So let's go ahead and create all of these methods. So again, in our game manager here, we want to create a game over method. So let's go and say private void. It's not going to return anything. So private void game over. And in here we are going to say to do or let's just say game over to do. Okay, so in our player died here, obviously the first thing that gets done is you subtract 1 from the lives, which is what we want. But the next thing that we want to do is we want to create some sort of check. So we're gonna put in an if statement and say if this dot lives is greater than or less than or equal to 0, then our game is going to be over. So we'll call our game over method or function, and then if our lives is not less than or equal to 0, we can simply call this our spawn delay. So we'll cut that out and we'll paste that in there. So that should be fine. And I think that's it for this episode. So let's go and see if that actually works. But before we do that, let's go and see what is next. So we've called the player dies from the player class. We've done that. Get reference to the game manager. Create and respawn delay. Only respawn player if the game is not over, which we've just done. Create the game over method and check if if the game is over. Okay, so episode 7 is complete. Checklist complete. So let's go play the game and see if this works. So we didn't really follow that list, but we got it all done, assuming that this is working properly. So let's see. I'm just gonna stay here and see if we collide. Okay, so we do. There's a delay. So now we spawn again. Okay, so we spawn again. Let's try and avoid some asteroids. Okay, so if you check on our game manager, wherever that is, game manager here, we've got no lives, and as you can see, our player is no longer respawning into our scene, but obviously the game is still carrying on, so that is something we need to fix later on in probably the next 2 or 3 episodes. And also we need to do something with these asteroids, because you can see they're everywhere. Look at that. So we need to probably reduce that destroy timer, otherwise we're just going to get multiple asteroids. But yeah, that is it for today's episode. So it was supposed to be a 10 to 15 minute episode, but clearly that didn't work. Obviously something went wrong as usual, but we got it fixed. Yeah, that's it for today's episode. What are you doing next episode? In the next episode we're going to be working on allowing our player to not collide with anything straight after it's respawned, otherwise you just die, assuming you respawn on an asteroid every time. So that's something we're going to work on, and depending on how long that takes, we are going to also work on actually making some explosion effects and explosion and particle effects using the particle system. So if that's something you want to see and you're interested in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so you don't miss that episode. This will be out in a few days, Monday I think, a couple of days, or however many days that is. But yeah, that's it for this episode, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in Monday's episode. So enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, or whatever time you're watching this. And yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.